Be honest, how much time did you give Kevin Williamson to iron this shit out a week? How much AI did you use to write it? So Scream 7 is the newest entry in the Scream franchise, the highly anticipated conclusion to the trilogy of Sam and oh wait, that's right. You hit the panic button on that. So the latest panic button in the Scream franchise is on Scream 7. Scream 7 is written by Kevin Williamson, so you'd think it's the return of the king, the guy who came back and wrote the original Scream movie and Scream 2, which are my favorite Scream movies to this day. And just so you know, Scream is my favorite horror franchise of all time, so Scream really does hold a special place in my heart of inspiring my literal love of the horror movie genre. So there's a lot riding on these movies whenever a new one comes out. Wasn't a huge fan of Scream 5. I quite enjoyed Scream 6. And I thought Scream 7, while I'm not happy with what was going on behind the scenes, all that drama, maybe they can make an interesting movie out of it. Well, so with Scream 7, we have the return of Sidney Prescott and Gale Weathers, the only kind of remaining people in this franchise, and now her daughter. Sidney has a daughter. Tell me when this sounds familiar. Legacy sequel tropes galore. We have a movie about Sidney Prescott raising her daughter. Her daughter is essentially having some resentment towards Sidney Prescott because they're a little estranged because of Sidney's trauma. Tell me when that sounds familiar, right? Sidney's married now to Faceless Generic Guy number 3, and now we have a movie about this family dealing with the fallout of Ghostface, and essentially Ghostface comes back to torment Sidney, and we have another Scream sequel. Sort of. I say sort of because a lot of these concepts, they're fun in concept, in more generic-ass horror movies. And I think that's the biggest affront and insult that Scream 7 has to offer is the fact that it feels generic. Everything about this movie feels kind of collaborated together last minute to just make something come out because they had to reach a deadline. Why? Because we hit the panic button. Because this whole movie, from the jump, I just didn't buy the conflict that introduced the crux of the story to begin with. I don't buy Sidney's decision to not do certain things in case in this movie there's a resentment between her and her daughter, which I won't spoil too much of, but it stems from the fact that Sidney just does not elaborate on her past enough around her daughter to prepare her for danger. I don't ever buy that Sidney Prescott would ever not do that. That's just not in her character. She showed up in Scream 5 for people barely related to her, let alone her own movie where she barely shows up for her daughter. I get that's the point. It doesn't make sense for her character. And I will elaborate more on that in the spoiler talk, but just the very crux of the conflict alone, shave that off because it's kind of character assassination 101. You save yourself about an hour of time in this movie, the slogfest of a movie. And I say slogfest, I say boredom because Scream is known for its characters. I think that makes Scream great, not just the slasher chase scenes, which are also awesome in the other franchise movies of this series, but character. You need interesting character. You need something to invest yourself in. The characters in this, I don't remember a name of anyone. No one in this group is memorable. I remember Tatum because Tatum is the daughter of Sidney, and like they do try to add something to her. It's not really character development. It's more nostalgia bait because that's all this movie can really have to offer. Like right when it starts and you're mimicking the scene right off the bat of the first scene of the first Scream where Billy crawls into the window and they're almost doing it line for line. I was like, oh God, this was going to be legacy sequel soup. I'm so sick of this shit. But don't worry, it's not legacy sequel soup. It's just generic ass soup instead. It all hinders on the fact this movie just has too many characters to try to focus in on. There's a new young group that we have to get reintroduced to because we don't have as many of the characters from the previous 5 and 6 film, even though we kind of push those characters into the story as well. I'm not really sure why they're here. Don't get me wrong, I was really relieved to see Chad and Mindy. I enjoy those characters a lot in the last film. With that being said, I don't see them being here and having it make sense for their characters. Also, on top of that, they at least brought a sense of energy to the movie that I did miss for the very few scenes they're in there. But like, again, when you don't know why they're there, you kind of just feel like this movie's throwing characters into it to improvise some kind of finale for an unfinished trilogy that'll never get finished. They're here to half-ass their way through the Scream tropes of, hey, what's the formula? What's the legacy sequel formula? Let's have Mindy talk about what horror movies do, what kind of franchise self-aware humor we can have. It's just, but it feels half-assed here. It doesn't feel as earned as the other movies are able to do with the exposition of those kind of scenes. They're important in the story to fill runtime. That's really about it. While we're going down the character assassination train, Gale, she's barely in the movie, but when she is, I at least appreciated her presence from a sentimental value, but it all comes down from just me being a fan of the franchise. Like, nothing in this movie in itself adds anything to Gale. It's the fact that I know her from the other films. That's all this movie relies on, is the fact that you know these people are face value nostalgia bullshit. And when you're not doing nostalgia bait bullshit, you have a bunch of new faceless characters that are practically nameless, that don't do anything for the story and are not that memorable. There's not really a camaraderie built among these new characters. There's no chemistry to really latch onto or really find anything tangible about them. They're just boring ass people for a boring ass horror movie. I don't have characters to latch on into my Scream movie. What about the killing scenes? What about the action, the horror moments? The kind of null and void in this. Like, not much happens. Like, there's a few moments that stand out. One particular moment with a keg in a bar, I really enjoyed that moment. That felt very much Scream and involving. Not everything else, though. Like, a lot of the chase scenes in this movie kind of just come across as null and void. This movie kind of lacked the sauce that the other Scream movies kind of had behind the camera. This one, Kevin Williamson, he shows up to direct, and it kind of feels like when Simon Kinberg, you know, you're excited because he did write and help write X-Men 1 and 2, so when he came back for Dark Phoenix, you're like, maybe it'll still be good. It's not even necessarily, it's kind of bad, but even more than bad, for Scream, it lacks personality, and that's the worst thing you could do for Scream. It's medium shot city with a quick jab or two. Sometimes the kill gets a little more intense as a callback to one certain moment in Scream 1, which I appreciated, but again, nostalgia bullshit. The movie doesn't really elaborate itself on any of the other creative moments that, you know, Ghostface could do that we're used to seeing him do in this franchise. Even though Sidney Prescott's a total fucking idiot for like the first half of this movie, I enjoyed when her shine would come out. I'm like, oh, there's the Sidney I know and love for about 0.2 seconds. Other than that, it didn't feel like Sidney. It felt like Neve Campbell running around because they had to bring her back because they panicked. I never felt a sense of atmosphere with this Scream movie, or a sense of like tonal consistency. The other Scream movies have layers of atmosphere for days. Even when you take the dialogue out, just scene transitions felt like something special. This movie lacks any of that personality to me. Anytime Scream 7 tried to have drama, it felt like forced drama because the thing that was causing that drama inherently was coming from something I didn't buy from the main character. And anytime it tried to be funny, it just felt like out-of-place comedy. Like, not MCU comedy bad, but just out of place at times. And maybe it's the fact that some of these characters just exist to be funny, and I'm fucking sick of that in movies. I'm fucking sick of side characters existing to only be comedic relief. Other characters can exist and have a life outside of the expositional dialogue. That's a thing that can still exist in movies, and Scream used to be great at that. Scream 1 and 2 in particular, I can hang out with any of those characters away from the main character, and they're just as fascinating. Here, who's that one guy again? If they're not comedic relief, they're dead. That's all the other characters serve a purpose for in this one. It's part of the problem I had with bringing Sidney back, or the original cast back in the first place after a certain point, because like this movie runs into that problem where anytime it does want to try to go somewhere bold and different, the movie wants to kind of pull it back a little bit and play it safe because they don't want to piss off too many fans of the OG, but you also want to please everybody at the same time, so you're going to please nobody. You know, you take Sidney out, it's an insult to the rest of the franchise. You make her do nothing but still exist in the movie, it's an insult to her character. Maybe it was a sign to not fucking bring her back. Then now you have Scream fans sitting here like, where the fuck is the tension in my Scream movie? There is none. The only tension I felt in this movie was the worry that this franchise was coming in here like a sniper, character assassinating anyone they could find that we were attached to. Palpatine himself coming back in this movie out of nowhere would have been more interesting than what the killer reveals are in this. Genuinely no spoilers, don't worry, but any theory you had in your head, it's probably cooler than what this movie does for you. Fuck me. Not gonna spoil the motive, not gonna spoil the killer. This is the first time in a Scream movie, though, that afterwards, I was still sitting there questioning, but why? Scream 7 is a case in point where just bullshit inside studio politics ruined something that just wasn't broken to begin with. 5 and 6 were going fine. You could have just made a third movie following that to give us something kind of with a sense of finality, but also to take a swing. 5 and 6 at least took swings for any time they did feel kind of been here, done that. Oh, that was going too well for us, I guess. Fire Melissa Barrera. Why? Fuck if I know. Because we're fucking stupid. Top of firing Melissa Barrera, and that's just fucking wrong. We got a piece of shit movie out of it at the same time. So it's a lose-lose regardless. What did you gain from doing this, Spyglass? I don't know, is it Spyglass? Whoever's responsible, fuck you. Scream 7 is a case in point of a studio ruining something on purpose to then repackage it with nostalgia and then say they're great by giving it back to you. It's not clever, it's not cute, it's not funny. It's just bullshit, just like this movie. Spoiler talk to come soon. Fuck this movie. Goodbye.